and we will get started. Christ, my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom and learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work, for to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen.
Easton, I'm leaving your boots here. I won't be back until later. Okay. Sorry. Hi, Mrs. Ferguson.
Hi, no, that's fine. All right. I believe you guys have sentence imitations for me, which I will take. Just a second. My papers are sticking together. Thank you. And I have papers for you. Now, here is the deal with the papers this time. And like, oh no, that sounds like a bad speech. It's not bad. I think I told you that we're going to keep working on these papers, right? So what I have done is I have edited them for you. What does that mean? First of all, if there's grammar issues, I've pointed them out. Second of all, if I asked you to do something and you did not do it, I have said, where is this? Could you please do that? If you made an assertion, you know that Frodo is brave, and you said because he just does lots of brave things, I might say something like, could you please give me one or two specific examples? So I want you to add that in your paper. Anything I say, could you tell me? Would you please? That means do it. That's me nicely saying, so I don't say do it. And you're going to bring, this is your whole writing assignment for this week. There's no new paper. You're going to work on the paper you already worked on. And you're going to make it even better, following my examples and my advice. I want you to bring me, and I'm going to hold, Easton's is in the front. Everybody's got red ink because, I want this paper back. In other words, I want this with my red ink on it attached to the new version. If you don't bring me both of them, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to say, your paper's now late because you didn't do what I asked, okay? This is good practice for you because you guys are all old enough to just hear me give directions. If you're not going to remember this, you better write it down, right? Or write it down on this when I give it back to you, all right? I need that back. And don't just bring me another printed out copy. I want to compare them. And Elliot, by the way, here are your I picked out my favorite ones, I think. Yes, ma'am.
I can take Riley's. I'm taking care of her animals. If you have it, I can bring it to her.
My husband took it to work today to scan it. Okay. So he could scan it in color and I could email it to her. I didn't even think of that. Thank you. But it's not here anymore. So I'll email it to her. So that, and I will have my husband scan Gus's. Because I wanted you to get them all so you could bring back. But there is no other writing assignment. Just follow my advice or my instructions. If you do not understand them, call me or email me. Or ask me right now. And say, yeah, I don't even know what you mean by that. What's wrong with this? What do you want me to say? On some of your papers, if I said, could you blah, 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 for example, you could, and I even kind of did it for you, sort of, and all you'd have to do is use my suggestion. Does everybody understand? So anything that is lacking or in your paper, or maybe a grammar problem or something like that, we will fix. And that's for next week. All right, so that's out of the way. I have a This is the weirdest art you may ever see, ever. But it's certainly going to be the weirdest Renaissance era art. First of all, his name is weird. His name is Hieronymus Bosch. Hieronymus Bosch. He is from Northern Europe. He's Flemish, so like the Netherlands and Belgium, that area of Europe. And he was working in the 1400s, so very, kind of early on in the Renaissance. And I don't know what's up with this guy, but it's just weird. I'm going to show you 3 Hieronymus Bosches. And we're going to go in order from least weird and wrap it up with the most weird. I promise. Whatever you're imagining right now, you are so not imagining what you're going to see. All right, but let's start with the least weird. Number 1, this is the Adoration of the Magi. You know what? We have plenty of time. There are 2 papers. This is not Hieronymus Bosch, and it's not weird. I just want you to take a look at it and just take a look at it for a moment and tell me if you notice anything odd, but just keep it in your head until everybody's had a chance to look at it. Just if you note anything just that you say, that's kind of weird. All right. Looking for my Bosch in here. Just a second. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, what do you think? Did anybody notice anything that struck you as peculiar? What do you got, Elliot?
The guy, over the fire, he's, reaching his hand.
Okay. First of all, where is Mary? Where are Mary and Jesus?
In the middle.
Yeah, in the middle of what?
Castle?
A castle of some sort. Is this castle doing well? It does not appear to be in very good condition because the walls are broken down. And yes, rather than come in to a place that seems open, they decide to stick their hands through the window and warm themselves over a fire through the window for unknown reasons. What else do we have that might be odd? Anything?
The perspective is just really weird on everything.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's just the art style, but
Because they were still working on
Yeah.
elements of perspective, perhaps. It does have perspective. The things in the back are smaller, the things in the front are bigger. What do we think of this guy who's just peeking in the window here? Don't know. Don't know about him. Ox I'm fine with, it's stable.
the angels at the top, there's his one the head right there.
There's an angel that can't quite make it over the top of the turret, apparently. What's going on? Can't quite see. And then I'm going to come around. I mean, some things are kind of charming. There's this little bird here, and there's little bits of a nest sticking out. That's not weird. This is kind of cute. But I'm going to show you something in the background. I'll come around. Here, I'll put my finger right up below it. It's obviously a lady wearing a red dress and like a veil. But what What is she talking to? You see the problem? Look, check this out. Wait, is it a tree? Is it like a what? Is it human?
Yeah, it looks like some guy standing.
It does. It really does. But he's not. He's not.
No, he's like going like this. Yeah.
What is that?
Kind of looks like a donkey shark.
A donkey.
A donkey shark. Hey, that's we have nothing better than that.
Maybe it's like a figure moving, like spinning. Yeah, it almost looks.
I don't know. But I mean, obviously human with clothes and everything. And this is not obviously human to me. So this is the least weird. Because if I looked at that, I would say, oh, it's Mary and Jesus and the wise men. I got it. I know what's going on. All right, the next one, probably without a title, we would not know what was going on. This is called, before I show it to you, it's called Death and the Miser. Do we know what a miser is? A miser is like Ebenezer Scrooge, if you know who Ebenezer Scrooge is. Someone who's greedy and doesn't want to give away or lose any of their money. All right? So in this picture, I will just kind of tell you what you're going to see, because once I show you, I'm going to lose you, because you're going to go, what? Somebody's getting ready to die. All right, and death is coming in at the door to gather him. And the question is, what's going to happen to him after he dies? And so there are angels that they're obviously trying to get him to turn to Jesus. And there are demons that are saying, we're going to take you to hell, basically, because you're such a miser. And then there's other stuff going on that just to know, because I want you all to have a turn. This is it. I want to take turns again. Maybe you can look, and then you guys can look together, and you guys can look together. And just, if you notice anything just odd, you will. It's not even close to the next one.
Don't ask why.
I know. Hieronymus Bosch is like, where's Waldo? Except it's just, if Waldo was really, really creepy and weird. And there were lots of them.
Here. Oh, baby. Here's the bag that's something.
Telling you. I don't know what's up with this guy. By the way, that is the book they're looking at is the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. So you can see that one if you go to D.C. Maybe you should put that on your list. I want to check out Hieronymus Bosch. Yes, so I noticed some of you, I should someone say knight. There's a helmet laying here. We've got, I don't know, maybe a rat thing wearing a hat.
The rat under the case right there. It looks very dramatic.
Yes. And then this demon, what is he got a letter? Is he delivering mail?
The guy with a bag next to the.
Yeah, and the demon's is offering him money, taking his money. I don't know. This is the touch that's lovely, I think. The angel is obviously trying to get the man to look up here, and there's a crucifix in the window and the light coming through. So it's oh, and by the way, you just mentioned weird perspective. Dig the tunnel above the bed. What? Where does that go? How far back does that go? I don't know. Yeah, Death and the Miser, Hieronymus Bosch. All right, but the epitome of weird, the epic of weirdness by Hieronymus Bosch, is called The Garden of Earthly Delights. And I apologize to those of you who are watching this on video, because I'm just going to put it on the floor. You can Google Hieronymus Bosch, Garden of Earthly Delights, and then you can zoom in, because it is a festival of weirdness. So I'm just going to scoot this over. And I'm going to put this down on the floor, and we're just all going to kind of come down here. Just all of you get down on the floor. Just get down on the floor where you can see. All right? I will get out of your way, Grace. All right, so we have here, let's move it back so it's kind of up and down for everybody. We have here, this is Adam and Eve. I don't know what to say about this.
Like the animal? Oh, that's like a giraffe.
Yeah, but and look at the background. It's like it's some freaky.
It's like a Wizard of the Oz.
That's what
Yes.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Then we have this middle panel, and I just don't know what to tell you.
It's like Dr. Seuss.
Why are there legs? So many legs, and then there's huge fish. They're into fish. There's another fish somewhere else too.
These guys are carrying something and people are crawling.
Oh my
into
gosh.
There's this guy who's decided to stick his head in the water and stick his legs out. Rat in a tube. These people are riding on large, or getting ready to ride on large birds. I don't know why one leg is sticking out the top here.
There's like the guys are carrying.
I don't know. And then this is punishments. This is just too creepy.
Yeah.
It's got a face, but the rear end is open. These ears are being cut by a
This
knife.
person's being eaten by dogs.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, I didn't realize this. My husband scanned this and printed it out at work so I could have a bigger copy. But some of it got cut off because there's a guy being eaten by a big rat. Like his legs are hanging, but it got cut off. Yeah, I don't know what this is. Some sort of scientific instrument. There's a little person on top. This person is not doing well.
Music.
We have in the background of this city on fire. It looks like a landscape from World War II, like London, World War II or something.
Is that a pink cow?
I think this is a pink cow.
It's a strawberry cow.
And what is
Strawberry
this?
milk.
Oh, these guys have a fish too.
Are those-
Look, they're
wait,
carrying
are
a big
those
fish.
centaurs?
They might be centaurs.
No, wait, no,
Are
I
they
can see
riding?
this
Okay,
guy's
they're riding
leg.
horses.
Okay, I can see this guy's leg, so they're riding a horse. The fish
this
is also eating the fish.
Is just, and what? There's a bunch of people inside that teepee tree. Oh, there's another fish. This strawberry is just enormous. I don't know what to say about that.
Mirror, I think?
I don't know. Or somebody trapped in ice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we could probably spend an hour and a half with a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Just like there's something flying, but is it carrying a large turtle?
No,
And what is this in the sky? It's in a fish. It's on a fish. He really had a thing about fish.
That looks like the DreamWorks sign.
It looks like the DreamWorks sign floating on a fish.
Yeah.
So anyway, we can go back to our seats. This is Hieronymus Bosch, and I do not know what he was thinking. Have you ever seen a picture of clocks that are kind of melting? Salvador Dali is called the something of time.
Yeah. The passing?
No, it's something unexpected. Something that doesn't, a word that doesn't seem like it belongs. Anyway, Salvador Dali is the name of that artist, and he's known for some pretty weird stuff. He's a surrealist artist, and melting clocks is pretty weird. But he's got nothing on Hieronymus Bosch for weirdness. And this is 500 years between these two. So it's going to be another 500 years before people are doing just really, really weird stuff like this. What were you going to say, Gianna?
I would have loved to talk to the guy and be like, what was your vision? What was the vision for this piece?
Yeah.
Because he obviously had one, has one, but
He does. But where it came from and what it is, I do not know.
He had an imagination.
Definitely an imagination. And I don't know anything about the reaction to his art. I would think that people at the time would have said, you're a nutcase. We're going to put you in a hospital because there's something wrong with you. But as far as I know, nobody said that to him. And his artwork is in the history books, and I don't know. You know what, before I teach this class again, I should read up on Hieronymus Bosch and just find out maybe if we're done early at all, I'll shut off the thing, and I don't usually trust looking people up on Wikipedia or whatever, but in this case, it would probably be have a fairly strong chance of being true. Hieronymus Bosch, just in case. So if anyone ever says to you, Renaissance art is so boring, it's like, dude, you have not seen Hieronymus Bosch. Yeah, that is the only reason we looked at him, just because it is just so not like anything else we've looked at, and because he never fails to entertain. But I got to get a better scan with the rat guy eating the. That is unacceptable that he's not in the picture. All right, we will move from that to something completely and utterly different. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. How big is that piece? Like the actual?
Oh, that's a very good question, and I do not know.
Because like, if it's that detailed, I'd assume it's pretty big. But
I would assume it's pretty big. You know, I could also look that up. I have an art book that tells me dimensions, but if I go in there, I lose the if we get done. Try to remember, if you ask me that later, if he's in the art book that I have in the other room, I will be able to tell you, because it's got the dimensions of the art book. This is a very good question. All right. Our book is called Renaissance and Reformation Times. Can someone remind me what Renaissance means? I know, I didn't ask you enough times, did I? So again, naissance.
is there like remade?
Remade, close.
Reformation?
Well, no, because the Reformation is something. The Reformation is
yeah.
Renaissance. It means rebirth. Rebirth. It's actually naissance is Renaissance is French, but because French is really Latin, you know, because French is what Latin turned into when it came among the Franks. So natus and the nativity, that word is being born, right? So it's the same, it's from the same word what it turned to in French. So being reborn, rebirth. What is it that was being reborn in the Renaissance? What have we been talking about or looking at?
Art.
Art and sculpture and ideas from Greece and Rome, literature, all of these things, right? So, do you guys know we only have 6 more meetings this year? Unbelievable, only 6 more. And we still haven't, we've talked a little bit about this second Reformation, but for a few weeks here, we're really going to hit it hard. This is an easier question. What does reformation mean? What does it mean to reform something? Remake it. Make it again. Form it again. And what are they forming again in the Reformation? The church. The church. So 2 re's, 2 agains, being rebirth of the ancient world and reforming of the church. Now, I have a difficult task, and here's why. Because some of my students are Catholic and some of my students are Protestant. And so some of my students say the Reformation was a terrible thing. And some of my students are like, yeah, the Reformation was a great thing, depending on which side. I take neither side because we're doing a history class, all right? I do have a side. But it's not any of your concern what my side is, because I'm just going to tell you what happened, right? And so if I say something negative about the side you happen to be on, it's fine, because I'm going to say something negative about the other side too. Because there's negatives to go around, all right? So I do not want to offend anyone, but I have to call it like it was, right? So in that vein, the first question I asked you, and this is basically all of chapter 11, what are some of the problems that led to people being discontented with the church? By the way, before we answer that, do we all understand that there was only one church before the Reformation, right? That everybody in Europe, if you went to church, it was the same church, not the same building. That would have to be a very big building. But there weren't options. You know, we drive around and there's different kinds of churches on different. Mm-mm. One. There's only one brand of church at this point. But people started to become discontented with it. What were some of the things going on? Tell me something you found.
Like they charged for baptism, the funerals.
Okay. It was becoming a real money sink. Everyone was taxed. Everyone was charged. And it just started feeling like the church was in the business of making money primarily rather than taking care of souls. This didn't happen suddenly. Do you guys remember St. Francis? Talked about St. Francis. And he said how he fell in love and he married Lady Poverty. And he gave away all this stuff. And if you gave Francis something, it wouldn't do any good because he's just going to turn around and give it away again as soon as he finds somebody who needs it. But St. Francis died eventually, and the Franciscans who came after him had monasteries, and then sometimes people like that Death and the Miser guy. It's like, oh, I want to leave everything to the church. I'm going to leave it to this Franciscan monastery. Great. So now this monastery owns all this land, and they're in the feudal system now, and they start to become wealthy. And when people get a lot of stuff, what happens to them sometimes? They want more, get a little cushy, get a little greedy, get comfortable, right? I really like to live comfortably. I like good food and good things to drink and comfortable clothes. And it sort of got away from the spirit. Well, this just went on and on and on. And then somebody would swoop in and say, we're going to reform, right? We're gonna start a new monastic order. And they would start out well, and then the same thing would happen to it. So by the time we got to the early 1500s, it just kind of looked to a lot of people like the church just wanted your money. This was one problem. Anybody find another problem? How about the fact that for a while there were two popes? For a little while there were three. But for a good long time there were two. This is called the Great Schism. A schism is when something breaks apart, cracks open in half. And one group of people had elected one pope, and the other group said, well, no, he can't be pope. We're choosing this guy. And now, imagine you're living then. You really love God, and you're a good Catholic Christian, and you want to follow the teachings of the Pope. Which one's the right Pope? I don't know. And people argued about that. And then finally, one of the Holy Roman Emperors swooped in and said, you're both out, and we're choosing another one. And then there were three, because the first two wouldn't step down. And just like today, when people in charge of a church do bad things, how does that make the church look?
Bad.
Does it make the church bad? I mean, does it? No. It doesn't mean what they're teaching isn't true, but when people who are leaders in the church do bad things, it makes people question, why do I even do this? Why do I even believe this or follow these teachings? This was a problem. A lot of people really started asking questions. Another one, I don't know that they mention it in chapter 11. Black Death. When tons and tons of people die all around you. Good people. Nice, godly people. What might you start wondering?
Is God real or does he really care?
Does he even care? Does he know all these people are dying? If it was only the bad, if it was robbers and stuff that were all dying of the plague, okay, it's a punishment. But it was everybody. It didn't care who it hit. And people said, I don't know. What is going on? Does this all make sense to you guys? These are hard questions, and people were asking those questions. And there were a couple of answers. We have kind of two choices. And actually, there are two different ways we use the word reform. All right? So, if, I think of a good example, just a second. If your mom says she wants to reform the types of desserts you eat, she could mean you're still going to eat plenty of desserts, but you just eat a lot of cakes, and she wants to start making pies and maybe some cookies. But still things we would call desserts, right? But maybe your mom means she's going to abolish sugary desserts completely, and she's going to decide that only fruit will be served for dessert, with no sugar sprinkled on it or anything. Or even worse, maybe she's decided, I don't know, cheese and olives are your new dessert. Now, both of them are reforming the dessert system in your house, right? But one of them still says, you know what, we just eat too much cake. Let's eat some pies and cookies. Let's have other branches of dessert. Let's explore, because cake is, I don't know, what can we say negative about cake? Cake is too difficult to make. It's easier to make a pie. It's not really true, but in the other case, we're abolishing desserts altogether. What we would call desserts. The same thing happened in the church. Had nothing to do with desserts, though. Do you remember our guy Erasmus, the guy who put together the Greek New Testament for the use of scholars, and he was very critical of the church, too. He wrote that book called The Praise of Folly and kind of dissed the church a little bit. He wrote another dialogue. I didn't read part of it to you, but it's very funny. Pope Julius II, who was kind of a notoriously not so good pope, was going to heaven, and supposedly, and he was knocking on the door, and Peter was there, and he didn't know who he was, and Julius kept saying, I've got the keys, and Peter's like, I don't think so, keys, And it was very, very critical of the way the popes were acting. So, but Erasmus said this, the church needs reforming. But I don't think we should break it. Let's not stop serving desserts. Let's just take a look at what we're doing and fix the things that need to be fixed. Right. That's one choice. The other choice is break it and start over. And eventually that's what happened, but not right at the beginning. Martin Luther was a monk in Germany. He wasn't going to be a monk, he was going to be a lawyer. And one day he was traveling back to school through a mountain pass in this big thunderstorm. The kind you wouldn't want to be outdoors in, right? And he was scared because lightning strikes people sometimes. And he prayed, and he said, God, if you will save me, I will become a monk. And he didn't die in the storm, so he went home and told his dad, I'm getting rid of my law books and I'm becoming a monk. His dad was not very happy with this. Not just anybody should become a monk. Today, we would say some people have a vocation, right? And it takes some discernment to find out, is this the life God is calling me to? Luther didn't worry about vocation. He just did promise he'd become a monk, and he did. But he had a problem, and it was this. He just couldn't believe that God loved him. He worked harder and harder and harder, and he fasted more and more and more, and he was harder on himself. And his abbot said, Martin, God loves you. You need to stop working so hard. You're going to hurt yourself. But he didn't listen. Well, he went to Rome, with a group of monks, and he was just disgusted. These people are living in luxury with gold and silver and jewels and all. This is terrible. This isn't what the church is supposed to be like. So he went home, and something happened that pushed Luther over the edge, so to speak. Not quite over the edge, but that's the next question I asked you. What doctrine or practice did Luther want to address when he nailed his 95 Theses to the church door? What was going on that he wanted to talk about? Apparently this wasn't as obvious as I thought, because people on Tuesday had some trouble. Let me read to you, okay? On his return, that's when he came back from Rome, he found Tetzel, a Dominican monk, selling indulgences in order to obtain money for the rebuilding of St. Peter's in Rome. And then they tell you what an indulgence is. Luther strongly disapproved of indulgences. So what is the issue? Indulgences. So what does this mean? I will summarize what Dorothy Mills said. Part of the problem was nobody even back then really knew how to define it. But the idea was, and is actually, that when you sin, this is the Catholic idea. When you sin, I mean, Jesus paid the price for your sins, right? And you trust in him. But there are consequences of our sins. If you rob a bank, God will forgive you, but you may still go to jail. God doesn't say, I forgive you, and so I will get you out of jail. A bit like that, only after you die, right? There's a certain price to be paid, and if you don't pay it here, you pay it there in purgatory. A lot of people think indulgences, you buy one and then you go to heaven. And that wasn't it. That's not the basis on which you go to heaven. But the idea is you pay a penalty of some sort by prayers or fasting or whatever because of the guilt. Okay? At the beginning, it was you do fast or give alms or something. And then it got to the point where people said, oh, you know what, just give us some money instead. Now, the church needed money because they were rebuilding St. Peter's in Rome. St. Peter's was kind of falling down a little bit. It had been, at this point, it was 1,000 years old. And that's a long time. And it needed revamping. And it was the current St. Peter's is what they were building at the time. So that St. Peter's is now 500 years old. But, and so this Tetzel, this Dominican friar, was coming around, and he was selling indulgences. But he was marketing them like, give me money and you'll go to heaven. It's not the way it was supposed to be marketed. It was not supposed to be marketed at all. And he had a little jingle. You know how commercials play little songs and they stick in your head, for better or worse? And then the people who make the commercials hope that you'll remember the little song when you're hungry or want whatever, and you'll go to them and spend money. Tetzel had a little song. And it went something like, and to understand this, you have to know that a coffer is a box for collecting money, okay? When once a coin in coffer rings, a soul from purgatory springs. All you have to do is drop money in the box, and souls are just flying out of purgatory. This was not what the church taught. This is what Tetzel was saying. And people believed him, and they gave him lots of money. And Luther said, this is disgusting. It's disgusting that he's putting forgiveness up for sale. So he did what sounds to us kind of weird. He wrote out 95 problems he had with it on a piece of paper, and he nailed it to a door. But it's not weird, actually. Martin Luther was a college professor. He was a monk, but he was also a college professor at the University of Wittenberg. And that's what college professors did. If they had a point they wanted discussed, they just nailed it to the door, and it was just sort of an open, hey, let's all get together and discuss these and talk about it and see whether it's true or not. It could be anything, questions about anything. So this was a normal thing. It always sounds kind of odd. He nailed them to the door. What? It was just, I want to discuss these things. But something had been invented about 50 years before this that made it really easy for lots of people to see that list really, really fast. What was it? Printing press. Somebody copied them down, took them to a printer, printed them out, and there were flyers all over the place with Martin Luther's 95 ideas. And a lot of them were about indulgences. Well, Luther got in trouble with the church because of his criticisms. And he was asked to take it back, and he wouldn't take it back. Eventually, the Pope sent a letter, and I put a papal bull. A bull means an order, a message, excommunicating him. You cannot come and take communion. And what did Luther do with it? He burned it. He burned it in front of a bunch of other people in the town square. So now, is it going to be very easy for him to go back? And no, it's not. That's big. That's big. He invited Erasmus to join them. We might remember that from the Erasmus chapter. Erasmus said, no. I agree that there's just a lot of corruption, and we need to clean it up. But we don't need to go just saying everything the church is teaching is wrong, and this is wrong, and that is wrong. I don't think that's the path we need to go. And then Luther got really, really mad. And he said some not very nice things. Martin Luther could be a little rude. Let's put it that way. All right. So, finally, in Rome, well, actually it wasn't in Rome, I'm sorry. It was in Germany. It was Charles V. Remember our friend Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, who keeps popping up. I told you, you're going to hear about him over and over again. Whose Aunt Catherine was married to Henry VIII, and he wanted to divorce her. It's that Charles V. He, also king of Germany, right? So he called a meeting in Germany, and he invited Martin Luther to come. Because they said, okay, we're going to have to do something about this guy. He's causing a big hubbub. He's saying a lot of things we don't like. He's getting a lot of followers. We need to deal with it. Why don't you, Martin Luther, come? We promise you. You can come here safely. No one will harm you. You can say your piece, and you can go home safely. We promise you. Right. That sounds good, except that about 50 or 60 years before this, they'd done the same thing to another guy named John Huss. And he came and they burned him at the stake. So he really wasn't totally sure they were going to keep their promise, with good reason. And his friends said, don't go. You know they're going to kill you. I said, well, they've made a promise. I'm going to have to trust them. And if I get killed, you, my friends, are going to have to carry on this fight. So he went. They showed him his books. Said, did you write all this stuff? Yes, I did. Do you want to take any of this stuff back? So anything here you'd like to say you didn't mean it, or you've been misunderstood, or... And he said, give me a night to think about it. He thought they were going to kill him. I don't blame him at all. The next day, he came back. He said, no, yeah, I'm sticking with what I said. And we're not sure if he actually said this, but they say that he said, you know, that everything he said was biblical, and he said, here I stand. I can do no other. So people told the emperor, grab him and kill him. He's like, I promised. I'm not going to go back on my promise. So Martin Luther headed home, and on the way home, he disappeared. And everybody said, oh, they got him. They got him. They did get him, but not the they you think. His friends kidnapped him. friends waylaid him and kidnapped him and said, look, buddy, they let you go this time, but if you fall in their hands again, they're not going to let you go again. You are going to lose your life over this. We are going to hide you. So they took him off to a castle, and they kept him there a year. They didn't put him in prison. They didn't keep him there. He saw that it was probably wise to stay out of sight for a while. When he wanted to go out, he dressed up like a seller of pots and pans that the Germans called a junker. It has nothing to do with what we would call junk today, as far as I know. And he went by the name of Junker George, which always makes me laugh a little bit. I think it's funny. It's Junker George. Does anybody remember what he spent his time doing while he was holed up in the castle? I didn't ask you this in the questions, but he did something notable. He wrote something notable.
Yeah, he copied the Bible into German.
He translated the Bible into German. Now, here's another misunderstanding about the Reformation. There were already over a dozen copies of the Bible in German. It's not the first one. Here's the story that gets told. The medieval church said it was illegal to write the Bible in a common language, and they punished everybody that did it. Remember King Alfred the Great in England? He translated part of the Bible into Anglo-Saxon. They didn't kill him. Cyril and Methodius made up the Cyrillic alphabet and translated the Bible into Slavic. They didn't kill them. What's the problem? Here's the problem. I don't remember if I've used this example with you guys before, but we'll use it again. If you had a book in another language and you were going to translate it into English, okay? And you came across a word in the other language that meant someone who is poor and has nowhere to live. That's what the word means in the other language. And you have to pick an English word to put in your book, all right? And so you're thinking about, okay, what do I want to use? I want to use one word for a person who is poor and has nowhere to live. What is one option? This person is homeless, a homeless person. So I might translate it that way. Now, the term homeless person, it's very descriptive, but when I was young, that's not really a term that we used. We would say bum. A bum or a tramp. All right? This does not have a good taste about it anymore. Back in the day, I mean, it was never a compliment, but it was just descriptive of someone who's wandering around and has no fixed place to live. It meant very much what we mean by homeless person, but with kind of a bad taste to it. So you're translating. So you might say homeless person, and the person who reads your book is going to feel one way about this person. Or you might call him and he was a bum. And then they're going to feel a negative way. Do you see the problem? But you had to pick a word. You had to make a choice. So here's what a lot of these reformers' translations of the Bible did. They have the Greek, and they've got to pick a word. But they pick a word that makes church teaching sound wrong. They pick a word that gives it a spin or a slant. This is what the church had a problem with. Here's another thing that often happened with some of the Bibles. Do you all, some of you all have Bibles? Does your Bible have notes at the bottom? Like footnotes? Sometimes, like you can, like there's a little one, you look down, oh, this word means or you can look at this other verse, okay? Which is very helpful. But in the Reformers' Bibles, a lot of times, they had notes like that, but they were all really snarky comments about the church. Like, unlike the stupid Pope who thinks this or that. It would be. So you can understand why the church didn't like this translation. This is what the church didn't like. It wasn't that they translated the Bible. All right. I know this is very kind of dry material, but it's kind of important to understand what was going on, right? Because we just, again, depending on which side of this divide your family falls, you hear kind of false things about the other side sometimes. All right. Martin Luther started telling people, oh, by the way, let's go back to Junker George. In his absence, while he was being Junker George and writing the Bible in German, the people in charge of the church at Wittenberg kept moving farther and farther away from the church. For example, oh, let's get all these pictures out of this church. That's terrible. We shouldn't have pictures in the church. Oh, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's change this. Let's change that. But even Martin Luther didn't want to change. He came back and said, what are you guys doing? I don't want this. Kind of got out of control. Another thing that got out of control by the time he came back and was not Junker George anymore was he was preaching about the fact that everybody was equal. And it's true. When God looks at us, priests aren't better people than people who aren't priests, for example, right? Saints come in all sorts, married and single and priests and kids but a lot of people heard everybody is equal. And this is the next question I asked you. What unexpected and unpleasant results did his teachings on equality have?
Peasants revolted.
Rebellions. All the poor people banded together and said, yo, Martin Luther says we're all equal. So why does he get to live in a big house? I don't have a big house. I'm going to just go raid his house and take his stuff. Well, why does he get to be in charge? I'm as good as he is. I'm just going to waylay him and take over. Martin Luther was appalled, and he said, okay, first, this is so not what I meant. He told the authorities they needed to deal with this, that this is not what he meant, and he wrote a pamphlet that I love the name of, Against the Murderous Hordes of Peasants. Against the thieving and murderous hordes of peasants. It doesn't sound very polite. He told the authorities, you're going to have to kill some of them if you need to put this down. He was not on their side at all. This is the start of the Lutheran Church. The Lutheran Church, as per Luther's desires, was not so very different from the Catholic Church. There's a lot of things that Catholics did that they did too. Because Martin Luther said, if it doesn't say in the Bible that you can't do it, I don't see what's wrong with it. Not everybody felt that way. There was another guy in Switzerland named Zwingli, Ulrich Zwingli. Didn't ask anything about him. We had a short synopsis of his life. Zwingli was a reformer in Switzerland. He didn't agree with the church, but he also didn't agree with Luther. And Zwingli, so Luther said, if it's not forbidden by the Bible, we can do it in church. Zwingli, let's see if you can see the difference. If it doesn't tell us in the Bible to do it, we can't do it. Do you see the difference? So it doesn't say in the Bible, you can't have a piano or an organ in your church. So Luther would be like, boom, love piano organ. Zwingli, it doesn't say you can have a piano and organ in your church, so we can't do it. You see the difference? This is the other. So Luther's up here and Zwingli's down here, and here's the Bible, you know. Like, oh, we have to keep everything within the bounds. And Luther's like, you know what? If it doesn't say it's wrong, it's okay. In Switzerland, the church was very much connected to the government, and so there ended up being civil war. And Zwingli's career didn't last long because Zwingli ended up dying in civil war. He was leading soldiers in battle. So that is our story of Zwingli. The last big reformer we learned about in this chapter, this set of chapters, is John Calvin. In what city did Calvin work? Geneva, Switzerland. And we'll save the second part of that question for a minute. John Calvin wasn't Swiss. He was French. And the Reformation spread to France, and it was not legal. King Francis I was very devoted to the Catholic Church. We will not let you reformers, you rebels, in France. Well, they were still there, though. And one day, a guy gave a speech. It was rather reformer sounding and rather critical of the church. And a lot of people said, you know who wrote that speech? He didn't write the speech. John Calvin wrote that speech. I'm sure John Calvin was a student. John Calvin got afraid. He said, they'll come for me. And it won't end well for me. I'm out of here. So he left France. He hit the road and headed north. And, well, I guess in his case, it would have been east. Anyway, doesn't matter. And he said, I'm just going to find a little place, quiet little town somewhere, and I'm going to write my little books and study the Bible and live simply and stay out of the limelight. And he stopped overnight in Geneva, Switzerland. And he's sitting in the inn, having dinner, whatever. And the leader, the pastor of the local church, Reformation church, comes in, William Farrell. And he looks at Calvin and he says, God wants you to stay here and take over the church in Geneva. He wants you to lead the church. Calvin said, well, that's very nice of you. I'm flattered. That's not the plan. I'm just going to head on to my little house and write my books. And Farrell said, look, if you don't stay here and take over this church, God will raise up someone else, but God will punish you for not following his commands. Threatened. Calvin said, okay, I guess I'm staying in Geneva, taking over the church. And he did. He spent the rest of his life in Geneva, except briefly when he got thrown out. And this would be a good time to finish the second part of that question. What kind of city did he organize there? What was life like in Geneva? Was it a place you'd like to live? What did anybody put for that question? Give me anything.
Like a free city.
Okay, was it? Free in what way? Free to do what? What do you got, Grace? You got anything? You got words.
He established a church government.
He established a church government. In other words, the church is the government and the government is the church. And they make the rules. And here are some of the rules they make. All luxury was forbidden. Public festivals were banned. No dancing was allowed at weddings. Feasts for too many people or on too lavish a scale were forbidden. Clothes might not be made of forbidden materials or fashion. No one might laugh at any sermon by Calvin or speak angrily of him in the street. These things were not only forbidden by law, but any infringement of them was punished with ruthless severity. Do you see why somebody might have thrown him out for a little while? Yeah, not everybody was on board with this. Guys, this is the beginning of the movement that we know in England as the Puritans. in early America. This is actually the beginning of the Reformed Presbyterian Church. And these ideas stuck around a long time in the New World in America, particularly in North America, in the colonies. In fact, I went, even after we were not colonies anymore, after we were the United States, a long time ago, I went to this place in Indiana, and they did a Christmas walk. And it was one of these villages where everybody dresses up in period clothing, and they pretend to be characters from that time, and it was really cool. And it was at night, and they had little luminaria candles along the paths, and you walked from house to house in this sort of living museum village. And the people, you stopped by their houses and you talked to them about Christmas time. So we went to one, and they had cookies, and they gave us a cookie and punch, and they had an old-fashioned organ, and they played Christmas carols, and we sang. Then we went down the path, and we knock on the door. Come in! There's this guy. And we come in, and this guy's in bed, right? He's got the nightcap. It's this old-fashioned looking, the cover's pulled up. And he's just in a bad mood. He's like, oh, did you come from those neighbors? Those neighbors having a party again? Did I hear singing over there? It's just terrible. It's just these people who celebrate Christmas. Just awful. Just ungodly. He was a Puritan. And he was still living under that code that, oh, no parties or celebrations or anything like that. And this was set in the early 1800s, this little living village. I still remember that. It was just such a difference that in the same village, these people, yes, have some punch, have a cookie, let's sing. And then the other guy's like, oh, those wicked people next door who are celebrating Christmas. You would think that people would avoid Geneva because it sounds like a drag. But people flocked to Geneva, particularly people who wanted to learn how to set up similar cities and similar churches in their own countries. One notable man that we're going to talk about in the next few chapters is John Knox. He came from Scotland, and he brought what we know as the Presbyterian Church they called them Presbyterians in Scotland. But it was Calvin's church. Do any of you know anything, if somebody's Calvinist, do you know what that main teaching is? There's a notable thing that if someone says something about Calvin, it's the first thing people think about. You know? It is the doctrine of predestination. Do you know what predestination, does that help at all? No, okay. I'm going to tell you, because it explains a lot. I'm just going to tell you. Here, I'm going to answer this, but then hang up on them, unless it's my daughter. Oh, no, it's the library. Hello? As soon as they talk, I'll hang up. It's a recording. Hello. Okay, they're telling me we have stuff in at the library. We already know this. Calvin taught that some people are destined to go to heaven, and there's nothing you can do about it. And extreme Calvinism is double predestination. Some people were created and destined to go to heaven, and some people were created and destined to go to hell. And there's nothing you can do about it, and you don't know which group you're in. There's no way to know which group you're in. Although there are signs. So that if you are a regular churchgoer and you try to be a good person, you're probably one of the chosen. But you can't know. There aren't a lot of people anymore who are hardcore Calvinists because it's just too hard to live with a God like that. I apologize if your family are hardcore Calvinists. I'm just telling you what he believed. But I also think that a lot of people, if they are Calvinists, they cushion it at least a little bit, because the idea that it's just random, that God chose some people and said you're going to go to heaven, and he chose some other people like you're going to go to hell. That's Calvinism in its purest form. Calvin did not agree with Luther or Zwingli. Calvin came a little later. Calvin and Luther weren't, I don't know if Luther was dead by the time Calvin was working in Geneva, okay? Their lives overlap a little bit, they weren't working together. But none of these three reformers agreed with the other two, which created a problem, right? So it wasn't very long before there were more than just Lutherans and Catholics. There were all sorts of there were the Calvinists. And so what do you do in Germany? We'll just take Germany, for example. Maybe you would like to be Lutheran and your neighbors would like to be Catholic. What would happen today? Nothing. Your neighbors would go to the Lutheran church and you would go to the Catholic church and you'd say hi and you'd, I don't know, have lemonade together. Back then, we can't have that. That would be chaos. Here's what they decided in Germany. They decided whoever you were the vassal of, whoever your nobleman is over the area you live, he gets to choose. If he wants to be Lutheran, you're all Lutheran. If he wants to be Catholic, you're all Catholic. And that's the way it is. And you better be. Maybe you might say, well, I'm going to move to live somewhere else where I can practice the religion I want. Like, well, what if you're a serf? What if you're a peasant? You don't have the money to move. What are you going to do for a living if you move? You don't have any choice. Some people snuck around and they practiced the other form secretly until they got caught. That's the way it worked. It just strikes us as very odd because we have grown up in a country where people are allowed to pursue whatever form of religion if it's not Christianity. You can't be thrown in prison for not going to church. You can't be thrown into prison for going to the wrong church. We don't do that. And we just kind of get the idea that that's what people do, but not so, not so. And if you fast forward a little bit in your American history, you'll remember that the Pilgrims left largely because they were being persecuted for not going to the established Anglican church. They didn't want to go, and they got thrown in prison for it. All right, that's a lot of information. Did I bring up anything that left a question in your mind, and what, that I didn't finish the thought, or this is what we mean when we mean Reformation. We have Erasmuses over here. There was a group in Rome called the Oratory of Divine Love. They were priests, cardinals, and they knew the church needed reform, but they wouldn't have dreamed of breaking the church apart. You know, they were going to try to work from within. Then there was Luther, but then just many, many groups of people, and they kind of developed their own style of what they thought was going to be right. And today, all the churches, we have the Christian denominations, are heirs of that. So it's significant because, affect our history because people were running away from persecution. Second of all, because this is the world we live in. Over the next, like I said about John Knox, over the next few weeks, we're going to be reading about what the Reformation looked like in some other countries. Next week, we're going to read about what it looked like in England. And guys, we already met this once. Henry VIII. Did he think the church was wrong? He only thought the church was wrong about one thing. Does anybody remember what it was?
That he couldn't divorce her.
I can't divorce Catherine, Mary Ann Boleyn. So we're going to go back. We already met Henry VIII and talked about him, and now we're going to go back and talk about him again, but we're specifically going to talk about the church in England, the Anglican church that started and its history. So for next week, you will read chapter 14. This is just the next chapter in Mills. You will revise the paper. You're also going to finish the Two Towers. And with the rest of our time together, I would like to talk about the Two Towers because the Age of Discovery was so exciting last week. We didn't even get to it. Hopefully you're all sticking with it. Guys, I told you before and I will tell you again if it makes you feel better. This is my least favorite of the three because I feel like it drags a little bit. It drags a little bit. And we're familiar with this, right? Because I don't, how many trilogy books have you read? Aragon. Do you guys know Aragon? Those books are pretty old now. When my kids were little, the Aragon books, there were 3 of them. They've come out with there's a new one though, but. And, or you're probably also really familiar with some trilogy movies, maybe. And often people say this about the middle one, right? It's like, it just kind of carried the plot along, but it just had to get to the good stuff in the last one, right? Sometimes I feel this way about the Two Towers. First of all, I want to talk about a few things I noticed, but let me throw it to you guys. Is there anything, first of all, that you just don't know what's going on? Let's just start there. I read a few papers where people about the Fellowship of the Ring, and I don't remember who it was, but it's more than once. Like, I don't love this book because I'm not always totally sure what they're talking about or what's going on. But that's a legitimate observation. So is there anything that you can think of, and it can be vague, it can be like, who are these Rohan guys? Or what happened to so-and-so? Or any plot question. There's no silly one. Or do you feel like you basically know what's going on?
This is my 3rd read through, so.
So you kind of know what's going on. Nothing you can think of? How about if while we're talking and something suddenly occurs to you, because something I say sparks, just interrupt me. You can physically interrupt me or you can shoot your hand up and I will give it to you immediately. You say, yeah, what's up with that? What does that mean? And we'll do it there, that way. As I did before, I really want to look at Gimli and Legolas, first of all, because I think it's so very charming that an elf and a dwarf are just really tight, you know? Like, they are good friends at this point. As a matter of fact, in the battle, when they're all holed up at Helm's Deep, fighting off a bajillion orcs, it says, Aragorn gained the door and swiftly it clanged to behind him. Things go ill, my friends, he said, wiping the sweat from his brow with his arm. Ill enough, said Legolas, but not yet hopeless while we have you with us. Where is Gimli? I do not know, said Aragorn. I last saw him fighting on the ground behind the wall, but the enemy swept us apart. Alas, that is evil news, said Legolas. He is stout and strong, said Aragorn. Let us hope that he will escape back to the caves. There he would be safe for a while, safer than we. Such a refuge would be to the liking of a dwarf. That must be my hope, said Legolas. But I wish that he had come this way. I desired to tell Master Gimli that my tale is now 39. I'm up to 39 dead. So they're in the middle of life and death. And it's not going well. And what does Legolas take the time? Where's Gimli? See, okay. Now, do you think it's only because he wanted to tell him he'd killed 39? I don't either. He wanted to know where he was because he loves him. Because he's found out that dwarves are not what he expected them to be, what he'd grown up thinking they were. Okay, so they went into Fangorn Forest, where everybody's like, don't go in there. Why might we as readers already suspect that going into some ancient weird forest is a bad idea. Because yeah, because of Mirkwood, definitely, and there's another one. There's two.
Oh, the last book,
Yeah,
The Wild.
they just called the Old Forest, where Merry and Pippin got trapped inside Old Man Willow, and okay, that's creepy. So already, I've met forests. Every time somebody goes in a forest, this doesn't seem good. And then Lothlorien. What did everybody say about going into Lothlorien? I mean, before they went.
You won't come out.
Oh yeah, oh, it's a bad place. Weird, weird, weird stuff. And it was a little weird, but just weird in a good way in this case. What if you were an enemy of the elves and you went into Lothlorien? I don't think you're coming out. I think you're coming out. So we're already kind of set up for forests. We're not quite set up for the fact that trees have shepherds and they look like enormous trees and they walk around. That's cool. The Ents. But they're on the skirts of Fangorn and they know Merry and Pippin went in because they can see the tracks. Like, we're going to have to follow. And here's what they say to each other, Legolas and Gimli. I feel the air is stuffy, said the dwarf. This wood is lighter than Mirkwood, but it is musty and shabby. It is old, very old, said the elf. So old that almost I feel young again, as I have not felt since I journeyed with you children. It is old and full of memory. I could have been happy here if I had come in days of peace. I dare say you could, snorted Gimli. You're a wood elf anyway, though elves of any kind are strange folk. Yet you comfort me. Where you go, I will go. But keep your bow ready to hand, and I will keep my axe loose in my belt. Yeah, you would say that, Legolas. You're a wood elf, you like the woods, but you comfort me. I have you with me, and where you go, I will go. Okay. Then, when they're in the caves of Helm's Deep, Gimli discovers caves. If you remember this, glittering caves. Just a second, let me find it. Strange are the ways of men, Legolas, says Gimli. Here they have one of the marvels of the northern world. And what do they say of it? Caves, they say. Caves! Holes to fly to in time of war, to store fodder in. My good Legolas, do you know that the caverns of Helm's Deep are vast and beautiful? There would be an endless pilgrimage of dwarves merely to gaze at them, if such things were known to be. Aye, indeed, they would pay pure gold for a brief glance. And I would give gold to be excused, said Legolas, and double to be let out if I strayed in. You've not seen, so I forgive your jest, said Gimli. But you speak like a fool. Do you think those halls are fair where your king dwells under the hill in Mirkwood, and dwarves helped in their making long ago? They are but hovels compared with the caverns I have seen here, immeasurable halls filled with an everlasting music of water that tinkles into pools. So he goes on. He just says, oh, the glittering, the shining of the crystals. You move me, Gimli, said Legolas. I've never heard you speak like this before. Almost you make me regret that I have not seen these caves. Come, let us make this bargain. If we both return safe out of the perils that await us, we will journey for a while together. You shall visit Fangorn with me, and then I will come with you to see Helm's Deep. They both have settings that they love that are opposite of what the other one loves. but they're willing to go share something just because they care for the other. Have you ever gone with a friend to see something, to visit something that you wouldn't choose, but they wanted to? And isn't it gratifying? I mean, think about that experience. Did you get anything out of it? Did you maybe enjoy it more than you thought you would? Elliot's not sure. Did you enjoy making your friend happy? Or your relative happy, or whoever it was? Yeah. We really do. We get something out of that when we share an experience with someone else, even if it's not the experience we would choose. Okay, well, what big surprise got sprung on us in this section? A character that we thought we weren't going to see again. Gandalf. Gandalf is not dead. What happened to Gandalf? Don't know. He fell and fell and fell with the Balrog down into the bowels of Moria and then out through caverns and up on mountainsides, and something supernatural happened to Gandalf, and maybe he died briefly and came back.
Like, whatever else, like one of the wood gods or something.
Yes, yes. And how is he different now?
Somewhere it said like Italy or someone was describing him. He's like more wiser.
Yeah, he seems very wise. He seems far-seeing. Does he seem exactly the same? No.
He seems also very at like peace with himself as well. Less rushed than Gandalf was before, and he wasn't even that rushed of a person before, but
Yeah.
now he's even less so.
He says things like, "Oh yeah, Gandalf, that's what they used to call me. I remember now." At one point, I didn't mark it with a flag. He says, things close up," and he doesn't mean physically close up, right? It's a metaphor. Things close in the future, things happening now, seem cloudy to me. I can't, but the far off I can see. So sometimes, Aragorn will say, "What do you think? How do you think Frodo and Sam are doing?" Like I feel that things are well. I feel that they're still alive. I feel that it's not all over. He says things like that instead of just calculating the chances. He used to be Gandalf the what?
Green.
And now he's Gandalf the what? Well, but wait a minute. Isn't Saruman the white? Why doesn't Saruman get to be Saruman the white anymore?
It's like evil now.
Because he's gone bad. In fact, do you remember, I think this was in the Fellowship of the Ring. He said, "I am now Saruman of many colors." This white's a good start, because you can put any color on white, right? It takes any color. It's just a blank slate to be written on. You could see white that way. White is lacking color, but when we symbolize things and we say they're white, what do we usually mean? What? Pure, good, right? Back, starting at the very, very beginning of the church, when someone got baptism, they used to give them a white robe. This is a very, very, very old practice.
I mean, they still do that with babies.
Yes, this is why christening gowns are white. When adults would get, I have been to adult Catholic baptisms, and they gave them the white robe because it's symbolic of purity, right? So Saruman gave up the purity. I like being many colors. Gandalf is Gandalf the white now, and Saruman is in a bad way. How has Saruman Because Saruman gave hints. Oh, Sauron, he's got a big army. Sauron, he's going to win. We better get on the right side of this, Gandalf. You're making a foolish decision. How did Saruman know so many things about what was going on in the world? Okay, with his birds. Something else also got thrown. The orb thing. What is this? It's Palantir. A Palantir. What do you see at the Palantir if you look in it? What are they for? This might have been one of the things that, this is hard to understand. I don't know what's going on. Let's see if I can look that chapter up. Chapter on the road to Isengard. Flotsam and Jetsam. The voice of Saruman. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, guys. Oh, in the chapter called The Palantir? How about that? Of course, Pippin looked in it, and it did not end well for him. For assuredly this is the Palantir of Orthanc from the treasury of Elendil, set here by the kings of Gondor. This isn't where he explains it. Okay. Do you, Gianna, you've read before and you want to explain what do the Palantirs do?
I'm trying to remember exactly what
It's okay, I put you on the spot. So years ago, this is one of the things that Tolkien just drops in this book, It's in the Silmarillion and other stories in the appendices. Years ago, there was a line of men, and they are actually descended from Elrond's brother. Elrond and his brother had a parent that was human and a parent that was elf. All right? They come from both sides. And they got to choose, and Elrond chose to be an elf. His brother chose to be a man. But because he had elf blood in him, he was longer lived. And the Valar, the gods, gave them this island called Numenor, way out in the west, right? And they were there for thousands of years. Finally, things went bad in Numenor, and I will not take the time to tell you that story. But the Numenorians that fled came to Middle-earth, and Elendil and Isildur were among them. They were Numenorians. They live a really long time. Aragorn is Numenorian. Aragorn is quite old. I don't know if we've discovered that yet, but I will tell you. And so when the kings of Numenor came to Middle-earth, they set up strongholds, one in Minas Tirith and Gondor, and up north in Amon Hen, where Frodo got attacked. He said this used to be the great watchtower of Amon Hen. How do they communicate with each other? Well, they could send messages on birds or whatever, but they don't have telephones, they don't have email, and sending letters takes a long time. They had seeing stones. They're like video chat. Basically, they're video chat. Except you have to use your own will. You don't just flick a switch. When we video chat, we click, click, click. There you are. But what if you had to use the force of your mind and will to bring up the other person, right? And have a conversation? That's what you have to do. So that means not everybody can use them. And it means if you're not strong enough and you try to use it, it does you harm. So Pippin looked in it What did he see? Do you remember? I know what he sees in the movie, but I want to see how it's described. Okay. I just passed
got
it.
here.
Oh, read it for us.
On this. First, the globe was dark, black as jet, with moonlight gleaming on its surface. Then there came a faint glow and stir in the heart of it, and it held his eyes so that he could not look away. Soon all the inside seemed on fire, and the ball was spinning, or the lights within were revolving. Suddenly the lights went out. He gave a gasp and struggled, but he remained bent, clasping the ball with both hands. Closer and closer he bent, and then became rigid. His lips moved soundlessly for a while, and then he strangled with a cry, and he fell back and lay still.
So it doesn't tell you. Can I, since you found the spot, can I, and then I'll have you read the, okay, read, starting in I saw. He's telling them what I saw.
I saw a dark sky and tall battlements, he said, and tiny stars. It seemed very far away and long ago, yet hard and clear. Then the stars went in and out. They were cut off by things with wings, very big, I think, really. But in the glass, they looked like bats wheeling round the tower. I thought there were 9 of them. One began to fly straight towards me, getting bigger and bigger. It had a horrible, no, I can't stay.
Okay, you can stop there. There were 9 of them. What do you think he was seeing? Yes, he was looking at Mordor. So, where's another Palantir? In Mordor with Sauron. So, Saruman has been seeing what Sauron wants him to see. Like, he's going to win. He can't be stopped. We should join with him. He's been manipulated. Now, one last thing before I let you go. Saruman, his staff is broken. Orthanc is flooded. He's being guarded by Ents. He only has one thing left that he can use. What is it? Do you remember? It was the name of one of the chapters.
The orb.
It wasn't, because he doesn't have it anymore. There's a chapter called The Blank of Saruman. The voice. And Gandalf warned them, watch out, because he's been weakened, but he can still manipulate you. And just, I know it's 2, but just let me read this one chapter. Or, not one chapter, one paragraph. So you're like, oh no, please do not read the whole chapter. Okay. Suddenly another voice spoke, low and melodious, its very sound an enchantment. Those who listened unwarily to that voice could seldom report the words that they heard. And if they did, they wondered, for little power remained in them. Mostly they remembered only that it was a delight to hear the voice speaking. All that it said seemed wise and reasonable, and desire awoke in them by swift agreement to seem wise themselves. When others spoke, they seemed harsh and uncouth by contrast. And if they gainsaid the voice, anger was kindled in the hearts of those under the spell. For some, the spell lasted only while the voice spoke to them. And when it spoke to another, they smiled, as men do who see through a juggler's trick while others gape at it. For many, the sound of the voice alone was enough to hold them enthralled. But for those whom it conquered, the spell endured when they were far away, and ever they heard that soft voice whispering and urging them. But none were unmoved. None rejected its pleas and its commands without an effort of mind and will, so long as its master had control of it. Saruman didn't get where he was by mistake, by accident. He's got power. Keep this in mind. Saruman still has power. Okay. Dorothy Mills, chapter 14. Do a revision of your paper, finish the 2 towers, and I will see you next week.